As we emerge out of time, the air smells faintly of birch, pine, and horse. The atmosphere is tense. Seems we slipped quite a way back into history. I think I recognize this scene. Strap in, folks. We're just in time to witness one of the most beautifully brutal revenge stories in all of history. In Kievan Rus, an area that occupies parts of modern-day Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus. As history didn't really take note until the lioness reared her head, not much is known about the first 45 years of her life. In the 10th century, Kievan Rus was a loose federation of tribes with some shared pagan culture, possibly descended from Nordic tribes, possibly Slavic, most likely a mix of both. At the time of our story, they are ruled by the Rurik dynasty. A neighboring tribe, the Drevlians, were loose allies of Kievan Rus in some military campaigns, i.e. against the Byzantine Empire. As with any political alliance, their relationship was nuanced, but for years they had paid tribute to Igor's predecessors. Tribute, aka protection money, was when a more powerful warlord would help keep your lands and people safe in exchange for money and property. The Drevlians decided in 912, after the ruling Rurik prince at the time passed on, that they were done paying tribute to the clan. They switched teams and began paying a rival warlord tribute instead. After 30 plus years of non-payment, Igor the Doomed decided to ride into Eskaristan and demand respect and tribute. For him, however, the Drevlians had none. It's easy to picture their indignation and probable entertainment as this guy strolls into their capital city spouting demands. Their counteroffer was absolutely savage. I suppose in the infancy of torture devices and techniques, one had to be creative. Two birch trees, ideal for stringing a hammock between, were bent over with considerable force until their tops touched the ground. A rope was then secured around Igor's ankle and tied to a branch at the peak. One ankle to one ankle to the other, resembling a man standing in the middle of a set of golden arches with a grim pallor, perspiring and pleading for his life. The Drevlians released the knots holding the tops of the trunks to the earth. They snapped back to full attention, effectively cleaving Igor in two like a demon from the game Doom. Apparently unable to read a room, the Drevlians immediately sent an entourage of 20 high-ranking soldiers and officials to convince the now widowed Olga to marry Prince Mal. Blinded by opportunity, they saw a way to seize control of Kievan Rus. Olga was acting as regent, her son still too young to take over. Knowing what comes next, one can assume she had a lot of love for Igor and a fierce motherly drive to protect her child. What we do know is she was now head of Kievan Rus's armed forces, and though she never shows it on her exterior, she is filled with murderous rage. She welcomed the Drevlians' entourage and summoned the ambassadors to her hall. Unironically mirroring Igor strolling into the capital's chutzpah, they demanded their persons, belongings, and boats carried to Olga's court. Calm as a Hindu cow, she agrees. Unaware that Vivisepulture was on the menu tonight, the exquisitely adorned Drevlians were carried in their boats, not to court, but to a trench Olga had had her men dig. All of the caravan were unceremoniously thrown in the ditch. Asked if this was the treatment they felt entitled to, the ambassadors replied this fate was harsher than her husband's. As anyone would, I'm sure Olga didn't appreciate being told she may be overreacting. Face unreadable, Princess Olga, scourge of the Drevlians, proceeded to pull out the world's tiniest lyre and played them out. Their screams and pleas for mercy eventually stifled as they were slowly buried alive. Some men have an insatiable thirst for money and words that start with P. Power, prestige, property. Prince Mal never heard back from his entourage, but it wouldn't stop him from blowing up them DMs. Olga didn't want him to flood her inbox with small mall pics, though, so she had to follow up in a timely fashion. She sent word back to the prince that she would marry him, but only on the condition that Mal send his most important dignitaries to escort her to Escaristan. Ever thirsty and oozing naivete, he accepted the terms. Olga received these VIPs with deceptively open arms. Tonight's dish will be served warm. Immolation. Wary from the road, the Drevlians were offered a bathhouse to clean up after their journey. In line with her ever-growing brand, Olga had locks placed on the outside of the doors. Cathartically, Olga purged the world of her second set of important Drevlians. Her choice of instrument in her Symphony of Revenge, this movement, fire. Staying out in front of those small mall pics, Olga sent another message to the prince. I'm not sure why you haven't responded yet, but I'm still open to this whole marriage idea. I never received my escort, but I will travel to Escaristan on my own, if you allow me to hold a funerary feast and proper burial for my husband. At this point, if you're a friend of the prince, you probably want to smack him and say, forget her, bro. But he was presumably surrounded by sycophants, as he acquiesced once again. Olga and her soldiers had a plan. Fake drunkenness until the Drevlians are good and besotted, then spring the trap. I can almost taste the mead and the fear when reality finally sunk in. Not one drunken reveler survived. At this point, Olga's symphony has reached its crescendo, an allegro with fantastic flair. The Drevlians have finally caught on that Olga is not to be with, and have resorted to groveling. Offering tribute in any form, our princess accepts and appears to let bygones be bygones. She's issued enough punishment. In lieu of tribute, she says, I'd like 3 pigeons and 3 sparrows from every house. An innocent request from a seeming lover of animals and pigeon fancier. The Drevlians, seeking mercy, obliged. Olga's soldiers fit each bird with a thread on their foot. At the end of the thread, cloth-bound sulfur. Introduce flame, and Olga's favorite instrument is now a flying vehicle of destruction. Humankind's main source of nightlight in that era? Open flame. The soldiers waited until nightfall and released the birds, who instinctively flew back to their nests, coops, and the dry, combustible haystacks of Escaristan. The once prominent city was burned to the ground. The soldiers of Kivian Rus hunted down any survivors, executing most, but leaving a few alive to pay tribute for the rest of their lives. Now I bet you're thinking, make this woman a saint. Perhaps the first in a long list of politicians who find Jesus and repent, Princess Olga would convert to Christianity in Constantinople around 955. Though her son was resistant to spreading Christianity, her grandson continued her mission. Together they are credited with bridging pagan and Christian Russia. Princess Olga was the first member of the ruling family of Kiev to adopt Christianity, and she was the first Russian saint of the Orthodox Church. In 1547, the Church, recognizing her significant contributions to converting Kiev to Christianity, named Olga a saint. She is the patron saint of converts and, fittingly, widows. Huge thanks to everyone listening in, and to the always on time DJ Meow Mix on the ones and twos.